Welcome to the fastest daf in town. Today, Masechtas Kiddushin daf Mem Tes. We're going to begin on the very bottom of Mem Chesam Beis, the second line from the bottom. Omer Rabbi. So we were learning in our Mishnah the opinion of Rav Shimon that when a woman is told that I am going to marry you on condition that I am poor, and it turns out that he's rich, on intention to give silver and to being gold. So Rav Shimon says that even though it wasn't as promised, but since it was Tol Shvach, it's a good Kiddushin because it ended up being better than what he initially mentioned. This is a concept called Mar Makam Hulo. So Omer by Rav Shimon, Rav Shimon Gamliel, Rav Eliezer, Kul Svirlu, they all agree to this concept of Mar Makam Hulo, that even though you don't say exactly, turns out what you said is not exact, but it ends up being better, so it's still good. So Rav Shimon had the Amran, as we mentioned in our Mishnah. Rav Shimon wheeled it non, as we continue Mem Tessimot Aleph. If you ever get poshut, now get poshut is, as Rashi says, the hasui kin shalanu. It's a regular get. It's not a get makusher. It's not tied up with all the different halachos attached to it. So Eida mitocho, the witnesses are in it. Mekusher, however, when it's tied, Edom miacharav, the signatures are on the back because they fold it over and then they make some ties and then they sign it, which is as it turns out that the signatures are on the back. Pashit shekasav Edom miacharav, umekusher shekasav Edom mitaycha shneim suon. So if you would end up doing the opposite order, that either in a get pashut having the signatures on the back of the page, or a makusher on the inside, it's possible. Rabbi Chanina ben Gamliel Omer makusher shekasav edom mitocha kosher. If you have a get makusher and you had the signatures on the inside, it's still good. Shiachal asoyis pashut, because you can just unfold it and it'll be just like a regular get. Rabbi Shimon Gamliel Omer hakol k'minhag hamadina. It all depends on one's custom. So, in fact, what does that mean? The Tanakama lace le minhag Medina. What they don't hold of the custom. Of course, you should follow whatever the minhag is. Yomi Rav Ashi be'atra, in a city denihigi b'poshit, that the gitin are all a regular get poshit. The ovid le makusher, but you ended up doing it as a get makusher, so again much more complex type of a get. You did it the other way around, even though they normally make this fancier get and you made it as a get pashut. So in that situation, there's definitely your makbid, because this is how it's always done. So why would you deviate from the custom? So everyone would hold that's not good. You're in a city where it could be done either way. And he said, Avidli Pashut, I want you to make me a get Pashut. Also, Avidli Makusher, you end up making it even more, the more difficult one. Now, these both occur in the same community. So Marasavar Kapeda, the fact that he said make a get Pashut, that's what he wanted, and therefore he didn't want a get Makusher. Marasavar Mar Makam Hulo, he was just saying, he's giving him the easier type of get. He goes, make me a get Pashut. I know there's both, do the easier one. So if you did the harder one, okay, the harder one should still be good. Rabbi Eliezer also holds this concept Mar Makam Hulo. Did not, because we learn like this. Ha'isha she'amra, a woman that she said, Hiskabli giti b'makam ploini. I want you to be makabel my get from this particular location. She specified, delineated a location. We kibul gitim b'makam acher, and the guy accepted the get on her behalf somewhere else. Apostle. Rabbi Eliezer machshir. Rabbi Eliezer says it's still good. Al maksav mar makam hulo. She wasn't saying I want you to specifically choose makbid. No, she was just saying this is the place where you could do it. This is maybe where my husband is found, and this is maybe an easy place for you to go find him. But if it would be somewhere else, it's fine. Amr ula machlokis. So let's go back to what we've been saying. The whole machlokis is only b'shvach mamlin when it comes to money. So silver to gold. Avol b'shvach yuchsin divir hakol enim kedashas. When it comes to shvach yuchsin, everyone agrees it's not a good Kiddushin, because it's possible you may not want to be married into such a miyuchastika family. That may not be good. Says Rashi, b'shvach yuchsin. Almana shani mamzer. Unconditional, I'm a mamzer. V'nimsa shu nesin l'nichle b'shvachle memnei shehu misgaya aleha. So just because you're changing, and maybe it's not as bad as being a mamzer, but maybe it's still not good. So my timer, Masana derav mikarai lo be'ina. It's very interesting. Says Rashi, minol gadol, this big shoe, memidus raglai, to put on my feet, enu chafetza boy. I'm not interested. Sheni yochayil halich boy umashal. I can't walk in such big shoes. I'll trip over my shoes. Right? So it doesn't mean, I have to wear high heels. That's not what it's referring to. But it's the idea is, I don't want to have to live in an environment in where I have to be all dressed up so beautifully, dressed to the nines. I have to act a certain way. My conduct has to be a certain way because all of a sudden I found out that you're from this unbelievable family. Right? Turns out that I'm marrying into, the King of England's family. So all of a sudden, now I have to be proper, I have to dress a certain way, talk a certain way, eat a certain way. I'm not interested in that. So therefore, even though it seems like it's a step up, that may not be what a person wants. Fine. That's how the Gemara says it. Tanya Mahachi. Moide, Rabbi Shimon agrees, Im hitel shvach yuchsin in mikdashas. So again, even Rav Shimon in our Mishnah, who says that maybe more makom hul, that's only with money. But now when it comes to yuchsin, Amar Avashi masnisa namidek, I can prove it to you. Dektani almanash shani kayin v'nimsa levi v'nimsa kayin. This is later on that it says on condition that I'm a kayin, he's a Levi, a kayin, the sin v'nimsa mamzer v'nimsa the sin. V'lo polig Rav Shimon. Rav Shimon doesn't argue in that Mishnah, so it must be that he agrees that's not a good Kiddushin. Maskeh from Ravashi. El detani almanash yeshli bas. On condition I have a daughter, or shivcha, or a maidservant, migudeles. And the question is, what does that word mean? The einlo, and he doesn't have a shivcha or a bas. On condition I don't have a daughter. It turns out he actually has a daughter from a previous marriage. The shvach mamoin, so this is a case of shvach mamoin, having a maid, right? It sounds pretty good. Hachinami de lopolig. You want to tell me they don't argue over there? El polig beresha. We said polig beresha. They argue in the resha v'hoden l'seifa. So hachinami polig beresha v'hoden l'seifa. So just because they're not arguing in the Mishnah when it comes to almanas shani kayin, etc., that doesn't mean that Reb Shimon really doesn't. That Reb Shimon agrees to that case. Maybe he disagrees there too. Just like over here, he certainly would agree, but it's not mentioned. So why would he not mention this case of a shivcha? Shivcha is a monetary thing, so of course he should hold it's good. So haki hashta hasam idim shvach mammon. By both cases, the shvach mammon, it's money. Polig beresh v'hodin b'seifa. So he argues when it comes to shvach mammon. He says that it is a good Kiddushin. Hacha the shvach yuchsin who. Here we're talking about shvach yuchsin. Im isa the polig nisni. So if he actually, because it's a totally separate case, it's talking about shvach yuchsin by a kohen to a Levi, they should have mentioned it. This actually is also a case of shvach yuchsin when it talks about the maid servant. Mi savrit my migudelas gedoylo mamash doesn't mean she's grown up. My migudelas gadeles. The amrahi lo nichali the shaklam mili minoi. The azla nadia kame shivusai. I don't want her to basically take things and then she's going to end up speaking to my neighbors, right? So again, basically what we're saying is by shvach yuchsin, everyone agrees it's not a kedushin. The machlokas is by shvach mamoin if he says almanash she'ein lo, but he really is yeshlo. So that's where the machlokas is. Says Rashi, gadelas means she's a chashuva, right? So she's a prominent woman. Well, Nicha says Rashi, she says shivcha chashuvali. I don't want this chashuva shivcha near me. To shakla mili, she's going to take my words. The ozla nadia gabi shivase. She's going to end up telling all my neighbors about how I speak and all these different things. Mishum shehi chashuva, because she's so chashuv. Matsuya saper im shechenoiseha. She's going to be accepted among the neighbors. Everyone's going to listen to her. But Tishma men are going to listen to what she says, and therefore, because of that, it's going to be embarrassing for me, and I'm not interested. So actually, the case of a shivcha is not a case of shvach mamoin; it's a case of shvach yuchsin, and that's the reason why he doesn't mention anything there because he would agree that Ein Mikadeshus. Question 11. Almana Sheshli Shivcha Migudelas. Again, it could be an old, grown-up Shivcha. The Ein Lo Almana She'ein Lo V'Yeshlo Migudelas V'Yeshlo Ma Dim Im Migudelas Hainu Gedoyla, that she's grown up, which would mean in case of Shvach Mamoin. V'Im Migudelas Hainu Chashuva. So what we're saying is Migudelas Hainu Gedoyla, that she's grown up. Almana Sheshli V'Ein Lo Ein Mikadeshus. Almana She'ein Li V'Yeshlo is Machlokas. Because on condition I don't have this Shvach Mamoin, because she's a Shivcha, and she can work for you, and she can do all this good stuff, that's comparable to money. So therefore, Rav Shimon holds that actually is good. That would be a Kiddushin. Even if you said Almanas I don't have, and it turns out that it is, that's more Makamalo. However, if it means Migdalos means Chashuva, then in that situation, it's not a good Kiddushin, because she's not interested, as we said, even according to Rav Shimon, when it comes to Shvach Yuchsin, if it means Chashuva, she's a Shivcha Chashuva, so in that situation, everyone holds it would not be a good Kiddushin. Okay. Weiter. Tanabam. Almana Shani Karyana. On condition I'm a Karyana. Now, what exactly is that referring to? Kivan Shikar Shloisha Psuk Mesach Nesas. As long as you can read 3 sentences in a shul, Harizim Kadeshas. So Karyana means basically you're literate. So as long as you can read 3 psukim, then that qualifies. As your condition was fulfilled. Rabbi Huda Aimer Achi Yikra Yitargim. You have to do a little bit more than that. You have to also be able to translate. Okay. And V'yitargim Midaitei. You have to be able to, says Rashi, Yitargim feel Midatei. Does that mean Bitmiya Shalo Kimitargim Shalanu, not like our translation? Vasan Yehuda Aimer Hamitargim Pasik Katsurasai, someone who translates the pasuk like in its literal meaning, right, without explaining its real meaning, because it's very possible to have misinterpretation if you just translate it literally. Harizeh Badoy, it's like a lie, because you're not. It takes away from the context, the richness of the Hebrew language. If you just simply translate it exactly in English, it loses its feel of what it is. But if you add more than that's there, you're considered like a blasphemer. So what does it mean? He has to come up with his own targum. We have to use ours. My targum didan obviously means our targum. The karyana. That's only if you use that language. Karana. I'm a reader. He actually has to been able to, with great clarity, read or have read the Torah and its Nevi'im and Ksubim, all of Tanakh. Al-Manashani Shaina. I say, I am a learner. I can learn. So what does that mean? So Chizki Omer halachos. That means that you know halachos, as Rashi says, halach Moshe Sinai. You know the halach of Moshe Sinai. Yochanan Omer Torah. You know Torah. So in the Havamina, we think that means Torah Shebachsav. So Meis Ve'ezu Mishnah. What does it mean, Mishnah? So Rameir Omer halachos, as we said. Rabbi Yehuda Omer Medrash, which is the Safra and Sifri, which is not necessarily, as we said, Torah as we understand it. So says the Gemara in Mem Testament Beis, my Torah, Midrash Torah. It doesn't mean Torah, just the Torah Shebechsav, the Chumash, but also the Medrash. Bahani mili the Amrula Tanina. That's only if you use the language of Tanina. I learned Abul Amrula Tana. No, I'm a Tana. That's quite a statement to say you're like a Tana. Adatani Hilchas the Sifra V'Sifra Toisefta. So then you have to have knowledge in all of these areas. Almanashani Talmud. On condition I'm a student, or in the Tosefta it says Talmud Chacham. You marry me, I'm on condition I'm a Talmud Chacham. Okay? So Ein Oimrim Kishimin ben Azai. We don't say that he has to be some genius like Shimon ben Azai, or for that matter, Ukashimon ben Zaima, right? Ben Azai and ben Zaima, says Rashi, Talmidim Hayu, the Bachurim below Bol Lachlal Smicha. They never reached the level of Smicha, that's why they're called a Talmud. But there was no one, as Gemara in Sota says, like them in Torah. They were the greatest. But they were considered like Talmidei Chachamim. They didn't get Smicha. So you don't have to be on that level, obviously. If someone asks you a question in your learning, you're able to basically answer it. Even if it's a Masechta Dekala, says Rashi Shein Oimikba, it's not with great depth. It's a Brisa, okay. So even though it's not like Baba Basra, right? You don't have to know all 176 blot, right? Or you don't have to know all 82 blot of Kiddushin. But even a Masechta Kala, but at least you have to have knowledge in something to be considered to be under the category of a Talmud Chacham or Talmud. Al-Menasheni Chacham, that's a whole other matter. Chacham. So Ein Omrim Kechach v'Yavne, they had to be like the wise people of Yavne. After the destruction of the Churban Bias, we went to Yavne. Or Rabbi Akiva v'Chavera, you have to be on the Madriga of Rabbi Akiva, of course not. El Kol Sheshon Oisa Davar Chachma B'chol Makom v'Omra. Someone asks you a question, you can answer. Nasheni Gibor, on condition I'm strong. Marry me, I'm a strong guy. So Ein Omrim Ka'Avner Ben Ner. We don't say that you have to be like Avner Ben Ner, the general, or Kiyoy Ben Sruya, which is in Sefer Shmuel, these great officers. El Kol Shechaverav Misiyori Mimenu Mipnei Gevura. So people are scared of you because of your strength. People know, yeah, this guy can throw a punch. Almanah Shani Usher. Marry me on condition I'm rich. What does rich mean? So Ein Omer Korbelezer Ben Charsoim. You don't have to be as rich as this guy, says Rashi, as it's brought down Masechtas Yomi, Shemaniacho Aviv Elof Svinais B'Yom, that he left him 1,000 boats in the sea, or connected them Elof Ayoris B'Yabashan, 1,000 cities on dry land. Or you don't have to be Korbelezer Ben Azariah, which is more in Brachos, among other places, discusses his great wealth. That's why he was chosen to be the Nasi, among reasons. Rashi says, Triyaser Alfei Agolim Hayu Meiser Me'edroi. 12,000 Agolim was his Meiser Behema. So it gives you an idea of his massive amount of cattle that he had in his flock. People honor you because of your wealth. So even back then, how did you get honored? By being rich. Almanashani Tzadik. I feel Rasha Gomer Kadesh. This is unbelievable. Even if you're known to be a Rasha Gomer, it's still a good Kiddushin. Why? Shemer hear her tshuva madaitai. Because maybe you had to hear her tshuva. You even have a thought of repenting. That already is enough that we can say, you know what, maybe it's a good Kiddushin. It's not necessarily a Kiddushin. It's at least a Suffolk Kiddushin. Almanashani Rasha. Marry me on condition I'm wicked. Like, why would you want to marry like a bad boy? What does that mean? So I feel tzaddik gomer kadeshes. Even if you're an absolute tzaddik gomer, shemer hear davar of avodas kachavim b'daitai. Because if you had a hearer, as we saw before, normally in a kodesh baruch hu mitzrapel amaisa, a hearer, a negative thought is not translated into an action. But when it comes to a hearer of avodah zarah, that does. So therefore, if you have a hearer, it's possible that you really are Russia. Sorry, fine. Question 12. Almanashani Asher, Almanashani Rasha Madin. So Asher, as long as people are honoring you in the city because of your wealth. Almanashani Rasha, it's a good Kiddushin, it's at least a Suffolk Kiddushin, because maybe they had to hear her. Almanashani Rasha, because maybe, even if you're a Tzaddik Gomer, because maybe you had a hearer, a Vera of Avodah Zarah. Question TA16 may be identical over here. Almanas Shani Gibor o Asher. Manikra Gibor, Manikra Asher. So someone who is strong, someone who is wealthy, is totally on the perception of people, right? So the way that people perceive you is whether or not you're going to be considered to be rich or you're considered to be powerful and strong, etc. Okay. TB 17. Almanashani Tzadik, Almanashani Rasha, Himu Kadeshes, Madua. So again, it's at least a Suffolk Kiddushin, because maybe you had to hear her tshuva, or maybe you had to hear her davar avodas kachavim. TB 17. Okay, so these are all pretty much similar types of questions in that same category. Let's continue. More Ganata. So Asar Kabin, 10 kav, if you will, 10 measures of Chachma Yordal Oyom came to the world of wisdom. There was wisdom. Tisha Natla Eretz Yisrael ve'echad kolam kulei. Eretz Yisrael took 9, and the rest of the world got the rest. So the greatest level of Chachma comes from Eretz Yisrael. Asar Kabin Yoifi Yordal Oyom, 10 kam of beauty. Tisha Natla Yerushalayim ve'echad kolam kulei. The beauty of Yerushalayim, nothing can compare. Asar kam Nashiras Yordal Oyom, 10 kabin of wealth. Tisha natu romim kadmoinim v'echakom kula. The early Romans acquired a great massive amount of wealth. Yud kabim anias yardul oilam. Tisha natu bavel v'echakom kuloi. When it came to poverty, Bavel got the bulk of that. Asar kabim gasis yardul oilam tisha natu elam v'echakom kuloi. There was 10 kabim of gasus, of haughtiness, and Elam got most of that. So the Gemara asks, it's Elam, V'gasus l'bavel l'nachas? You're telling me it was in Elam? How about in Bavel? Well, the pasuk says in Zechariah, V'esa einai, I lift up my eyes, V'era, and I saw, V'ini shtayim noshim yoitzais, 2 women went out, V'ruach b'kanfehem, with the wind of wings, V'laheina knafayim kikanfi hachasida, and their wings were that of a stork. V'tisena es ha'efa bein haaretz uvein hashamayim, and they placed this ephah, this measure between the heavens and the earth. V'omer el hamalach hadover bein, the malach it was said to the malach that spoke to me, Ana hema malichas as ephah, where are you bringing this measure? V'omer Elai livnoisla bayis be'eretz Shinor. I'm basically going to Shinor. V'omer Yochanan zu chanufa the gasas ruach shiardol Bavel. This is actually referring to the gasas ruach that was in Bavel. So why are you saying that it's in Elam? So where it says in l'hachanachas, it was there. However, v'ishtarvuve d'ishtarvuve l'hasam, it ended up spreading out to other places. So it could be originated in one place, but eventually got to Bavel. To build a house. So that's a proof. Why? Says Rashi, Gabi hoyulacha ksiv lehen shtei nashim. V'gabi kaviusa, when it comes to establishing it, kishabo livnois bayis l'kavol b'Bavel chasavla. That's once it was built, like the more permanent was in Bavel, but it started off in Elam. Any v'yomer Mar simon legasas anias. The simon for haughtiness is poverty. V'anias b'Bavelhu deika. So my anias the Torah. It means poverty of Torah. Says Rashi, de'enu noichal gasei ruach v'mitayka suso in mishamish kol tzarcha v'ein machzer al shemasai. Because you're gaiva, you will be an ani in Torah. Because if you are haughty and you think you know everything, you're not going to learn, and even if you do learn, you're going to forget it all. I have this little daughter, which is Rashi says, Anias the Torah, be'elahu sha'ayaba, Daniel. So it's referring to the Anias of Torah. Fine. V'shadaim einlah. The Amar of Yochanan zu elam. It's referring to elam. Shezachsa lumad zachsa lamed. They learned, but they didn't teach. Asar kamen gevor yadol oyam 10 kamen of strength. Tisha natul parsim v'chulu. So 9 were among the Persians, and everyone else got everything else. Asar kaben kinim yardul oilam, 10 kaben measures of lice. Tisha natul modai chulu. So Madai, the city Madai, got most of it. Asar kaben shafim yardul oilam, witchcraft. Tisha natul mitzrayim chulu. Certainly based on the Pashup Shad, or the reading of the Psukim in Sefer Shemos, there was a lot of witchcraft in Mitzrayim. Asar kaben negoyim yardul olam, 10 kaben of literally leprosy. Tisha natul chazirim hu. The pigs unfortunately got most of that. Yud kaben znos yardul olam, 10 kaben of licentiousness and immorality. Olam tisha natul Arabia. So now them went to Arabia. Asar kaben azus yardul oilam tisha natal meshan chulu. So Mishan got most of azus, of brazenness. And here's an unbelievable one. Asar kaben sicha yardul oilam tisha natal nashim chulu. So women received 9/10, which means the Gemara even then attests to the fact that women are more conversationalists than men. Asar kaben shichros yardul oilam, drunkenness, tisha natul kushim. The kushim were the most drunk. The sarkab sheni oilam, sleep. Tisha natul avadim, slaves, because they don't have much to wake up for. The echa natul kol olam kuloi. So this is the different things that have disproportionate amounts in this world, and that's the idea behind this. Life is not fair. Things are not necessarily that one person has more, should have equality when it comes to these things. There's certain things that people have more of. Some people may have certain strengths more than others do, and that's just the reality of how things are. Ad kan.